Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Season 2 is very close, and today there has been some very big announcements that are going to change the meta of Last Epoch forever. The main change basically is that legendary potential is changing, and they're gonna now allow us to guarantee one affix that we slam on a unique as long as we're completing the dungeon in tier 2. This effectively means that if you have a 1 LP item, you will always get the stat you want. If the item has more than 1 LP item, like 2 or 3, you will guarantee one stat, and then the other remaining stats will be random, and of course if the item is 4 LP, you will get all stats, as you can't miss. I wanted to make this video because this obviously has huge implications for the meta and for what is considered achievable, viable, and what items are easy to obtain. For example, if you ask players in the current patch of Last Epoch what is easier to get, like some good Exalted or a red ring with LP with the tier 7 slam you won, most people will tell you, hey, it's much easier to get the Exalted item because red rings are rare and then you have to slam and you have to find the tier 7, blah blah blah. Well, that completely changes. Now, 1 LP red rings with the tier 7 guaranteed you won. If you play a bit and you're in MG or you know how to play COF slightly, these are basically guaranteed items now. On top of that, they have also introduced a way to re-roll the implicits of an item as long as you sacrifice an item of equal value through a special mechanic in the woven echoes. What this means is, like, if you find a 1 LP red ring, but it's minimum rolled everywhere, and you have a red ring that you have put on the egg of the forgotten, the egg thingy of the Harbingers, not the Harbingers, sorry, the Nemesis, that basically makes it so that item that you slam and it gets like a tier 1 lining resistance or whatever, you can sacrifice that item to re-roll your 1 LP red ring that has bad implicits. This basically is super powerful, especially for these items that are very easy to find without LP and to slam. Most of the times, if you put them on the egg, they're gonna slam something bad, but now you're gonna be able to turn those into fuel to re-roll your guarantee slammable bases, which again, this is basically huge when it comes to changing the game. A lot of people are concerned about this adding a lot of power creep, and if you obviously these items are going to be easier to get, but the real ceiling of the game is not really changing, because again, items like Ravenous Void, Red Rings of Adleria, sure, you can drop them with 2 LP, but I mean, like hitting that 2 LP with the affix you won plus the second best in slot, it's still going to be pretty hard to do, right? So sure, like, we're getting to the ceiling faster, but this, in my opinion, the ceiling hasn't changed much. And again, most people who grinded a lot were getting to that ceiling. So the only thing that this does, in my opinion, is basically make the ceiling lower for everyone else. So if you were a player who struggled, maybe you only find 1 red ring in your entire playthrough, well, you would have slammed that, right? For me, I found so many that, of course, I end up slamming what I want because I just brute force RNG. Again, this removes the bad feeling also of grinding, and I think this is gonna cause people to play way more, basically. Okay, now that I have explained the change, what does this mean? This means that next patch, I predict we're gonna see full unique builds. Basically, people would be very cautious about adding items in their planners like Ravenous Void, like red rings, like Nihilis, like this kind of items, because obviously they would be super hard to get and not really realistic for the average player. And even for someone experienced, it would be so unreliable that maybe you couldn't really plan for it, right? But now, that's the opposite, There's gonna be any unique item that has a good set of implicits, and now you can guarantee the slam. It's gonna be insane, right? For example, a build like this, like multi-shot, that you want to use red rings, you want to use Ravenous Void, you want to make sure you hit your crit early on so you can start fragging, you want to hit, all these uniques. Now this is like level day 1 gear if you're a blaster. Obviously, you know, the red rings with LP are going to take a bit longer, but on COF they're going to be super easy to get. It's going to be way easier to get that with LP than getting a belt like this. And because getting a belt like this is going to be significantly harder, what I predict is going to happen is that people are going to shift away from exalted items. And instead of using this, for example, you might want to use a Thornslinger, or you might want to be using, again, like in certain builds, you know, depending on the build, items like Strand of Souls, items like Jungle Queens, these items that were already very strong. Now it's just going to be a no-brainer, right? The same goes for chess pieces, etc, etc. I selected a few builds just to talk a bit about what this implies. We talked about multi-shot a bit, but for example, something like Frostbite Frostclaw. Before, getting an item like this would be extremely grindsome if you got unlucky with your slams. I've seen people on Reddit, you know, oh, I farmed 27 Twisted Hearts with 1 LP, and I missed all my Frostclaws, blah blah blah. Well, now you get one. Now you can use Rune of Havoc also, so you can guarantee pretty much, as long as you brute force RNG, to get the +4 or whatever affix you want. For those who don't know, Rune of Havoc is a new crafting material where you can find an Exalted, right? That has an open prefix in this case. You craft tier 1 Frostclaw, and then it has, for example, tier 7 increased cold damage or something. Then you just like use Rune of Havoc, so the tier cold increased damage gets shifted with the tier 1 level of Frostclaw, so that way you can deterministically or very easily get, eventually, you know, once you hit the thing, because there's still a chance, you will get your Frostclaw, +4 Frostclaw, pretty easy basically, right? So getting an item like this would be before maybe like a 2-week endeavor, you know, to farm something like this by a good player, unless you get really lucky. And now this is going to be way easier than, for example, to get a chess piece like this, right? Where best in slot affixes everywhere, etc, etc. And again, this is just going to spread to every item in the game. Things like this, Frostbite Shackles with LP, and then hit the LP you want. I'm looking at the low life affix, right? I'm looking at hybrid healths. The same goes for Ravenous Voids, you know. Basically, Ravenous Voids with tier 7 hybrid health, is if you grind enough, they're basically guaranteed on a reasonable amount of time now, which was unthinkable before, right? So again, insane, right? Again, builds like this suddenly, Strand of Souls, every item that you ever thought, oh, you know, I would want to use this item, but it's going to be too hard to get. Now these items are going to be extremely easy to get if you compare it to the equivalent power through an exalted item, like I said. Again, other big winners, shields, right? The fact that now you have any unique shield with that has a good block implicit. Now I'm looking at Apocalypse Shield, I'm looking at Mountain Shield, I'm looking at, you know, all these high value shields. And now you're just gonna guarantee slam the tier 7 block chance. Well, again, this is gonna, block is just gonna be so OP because this change. Items again like Auroras, like Nihilis, etc, etc. This is gonna be insane. And again, going back to items like Twisted Heart, getting Twisted Hearts, it's so easy because you just kill the boss. Oh, you drop it without LP? Well, you just slam it on the Egg of the Forgotten, right? And then it doesn't matter what you slam because you're going to be able to use that bricked Twisted Heart to reroll the 1 LP Twisted Heart that you drop. And again, implicits on this item are pretty important. So now you're actually, before you slam your tier 4 Frostclaw or whatever, you're going to be able to reroll the implicit and then guarantee the slam. So again, basically, I think on planners, if you're a min-maxer, you should be counting on basically close to perfect implicits now, because it's basically the way to play, right? And we have the tools to do that. And unique boots, they were already extremely popular. You know, boots like Blood of the Exile, you know, the crit multi boots, etc. Well, now these boots, again, getting this with 1 LP is 1 in 5, in COF is 1 in 2.5 or whatever, 1 in 3, right? Well, I mean, you know, guaranteed tier 7 here. It's gonna be hard to get an exalted boot that is better than this in the same amount of time. This is, again, you're gonna guarantee this is gonna be insane. Again, another notable things, like I said, Red Ring, of course, probably the biggest winner. I think if your build struggles to fit red rings in it, obviously it's gonna affect how well it performs, because I think red rings are just gonna dominate the meta. They were already dominating the meta, but now they're gonna be super accessible. It's not gonna be like a dream anymore, you know? The same goes for things like Nihilis, right? Hey, you drop a Nihilis, it has LP, so then you just keep re-rolling the Nihilises with all the brick Nihilises and the shit Nihilises you find until it rolls something decent, and then you guarantee the slam, you know? Again, I can't stress enough how much this is going to change the meta. Again, don't be surprised if for 1.2, planners are literally full uniques, basically. Full uniques, you know? So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty interesting to see. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see if I'm right or not, I guess. Again, I think this is also possibly going to make all the set changes completely irrelevant. Because, again, the sets are going to be competing with items that are extremely easy to get, that are extremely rewarding and extremely powerful. So, yeah, good luck with that. And then there's niche items that, you know, they've always been very, 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 very good, but that people never really used because, again, you know, they were kind of like annoying to farm because you have to kill the dungeon boss and no one likes dungeons. But now you're going to be able to skip directly to the dungeon, right? So can you imagine you play for a week or whatever, you stack a bunch of portals and a bunch of keys, you change all your keys to be the mountain key, because you're going to be able to do that, to exchange the keys, and then you just go and do 50 bosses in a row, boom, 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 boom. And again, 50 bosses in a row in COF, you're basically dropping a bunch of 1 LPs and maybe a 2 LP, which you will be able to guarantee the slam on it. And you will be able to reroll so you get a 10 attributes and stuff like that. So again, items like Core of the Mountain, items like Immolator's Belt, items like Jewel Rust Gloves and Stardinal Rings, like anything that is like easy to farm, it's gonna, like this, and benefits from all the mechanics I mentioned in this video, it's gonna giga be meta, basically. So again, the reason I'm making this video is so you can, till we have patch notes with this knowledge that is publicly available, I would suggest you to go into the planners, you know, Maxroll, whatever, yeah, and start thinking, what are the big winners? Like, if you could guarantee 1 LP slams on a build that you like, would that build be extremely more powerful? Would the gearing be so easy that it's maybe a contender to be your starter? Things like that. So again, I'm expecting a complete shift of the meta because of this. And yeah, we will see if there's some items that I haven't thought about that become just like meta everywhere. Again, thank you guys for watching. And this Friday, after the podcast the devs do, we're going to be holding our own podcast with Maxroll. And then during the next week, we're also going to be holding a podcast with Woody, you know, so we can talk a bit about the meta changes and what builds we think are going to be good and all that. And again, we're going to be updating everything in Maxroll and updating the tools and the planner so you can play around as soon as the NDA is lifted. Hopefully, that's on the 11th, so in a couple days. And I'm fighting hard for that, so yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys cook. And I hope you guys appreciate all the work we put in for the patch. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you have any item in mind that might be extremely, that gets extreme benefits from these changes. And yeah, see ya.